everybody, and welcome to another Top 5 board gaming video. Today's video is a sort of blast from the past. We're going to be talking about back to basic board games. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is games that are not like these really complex hobby games. We're not going to be talking about worker placement games and deck building games and negotiation games and all this kind of thing. Like, we have had a lot of strategic games over the last, century, literally, and even well beyond that. Okay, I'm essentially not going to be talking about modern games. I'm going to be talking about games that I really enjoy that come from the very far past. Now, granted, there are some games, like for example Cosmic Encounter, my favorite game of all time, was originally published in like the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. That's when the first edition came out. So that's why the caveat for today, the biggest caveats, are first, we're going to be talking about games that are comparatively very simplistic mechanistically. We're not talking about all these different combinations of movement and tile placement and, like I said, the deck building and all that kind of stuff. We're not talking about any of that. And the other thing is we're talking about the games that you would more often than not play as a kid. No, that doesn't mean we're talking about Life and Sorry and Monopoly and things of that nature. We're still talking about strategic games, but ones that are, for lack of a better term, more accessible to pretty much anybody. These are the games that you will see on a lot of store shelves and not just at a game store. But with that, I hope that you enjoyed this video. We're going to get started right off with my number 5. So one thing that I forgot to mention is, unfortunately, I actually only own the number 1 game on this entire list. So you guys are going to see a lot of blank stares and a lot of pictures in my my fancy little corner up here. But suffice it to say, number 5 for me personally is Trivial Pursuit. I love trivia games. Trivia games are really great, but in my opinion, the modern take on them has really kind of ruined what they were. I really enjoyed like the old school Trivial Pursuit with the little pie pieces and all that kind of thing. Now, does that mean that anything really has changed with the way trivia games work? No, not really. I mean, I also had the Simpsons trivia game. Even now, I've got the Big Bang Theory trivia games, and stuff like this. I really do enjoy them, but I remember growing up and playing Trivial Pursuit with my parents, and to this day, they refuse to play Star Wars Trivial Pursuit with me, because I always win. But that's beside the point. I really love the games. It's a fun thing. I like having that little random and pointless knowledge. I mean, it's called Trivial Pursuit because it's trivial facts, and I really enjoy learning that, and playing these little games is a great way to do it. So trivia games and Trivial Pursuit in particular are my number 5 blast from the past game. At number 4 is a game that has been around for literally millennia. It comes to us out of China at some point, and it is Go. Go is a game that is all about territory control. It's a very simple 2-player game where you got black pieces and white pieces, and the idea is that you're just trying to surround area. That's all that the game really is. The thing is, it has quintillions upon quintillions of possibilities in the way that the board ends up getting set up. It was only within the last, I believe it was 6 months, maybe even more recent than that, that a computer program was actually able to beat a world champion Go player. Now, chess was done back in like the 70s with Deep Blue, but this one, I mean, I don't remember the name of the computer. I want to say it was like AlphaGo or something along those lines. But either way, it only happened this year in 2016 that a computer was able to beat a human being at the game Go. I mean, it is a very classic strategy game. The reason why it's lower on my list is simply because I am horrible at it. I am really bad at it. There are other strategy games that I am very good at. I'm really good at other games of that style, but Go, I have never been able to get. When I was a kid, I played it a reasonable amount. I still play it on occasion now, but I am just so bad at it. And that's why it's a little bit lower on this list. But it is doubtlessly an absolute classic. It is tremendously fun. It is an incredible brain exercise for you to play this game. It's absolutely amazing, super simple, and a lot of fun. Go, my number 4, Blast from the Past. And number 3 is a much more modern game that many of you have probably played before, Stratego. Stratego is a very interesting game in that you've got a bunch of different pieces and they're hidden. It's a very simple rank-based game where when two pieces collide with one another, you see which one has a higher rank, and then they sort of blow up. Well, the loser blows up, and if they're tied, then they both blow up, essentially. There's a lot of miniature strategy within it. In the end, it's a capture the flag. That's the idea. You have to find out which individual piece is your opponent's flag and get to it. There's strategy revolving around units that have special movements, units that have special attack powers, units that are designed to stay put, the bombs, and then of course the flag, all sorts of different stuff. It is a surprisingly deep game for something that is so simple. I really enjoy it. Like I said, the only game I actually own is the top spot on this list, unfortunately, but it's a really cool little game, and it's still being published now, and I remember growing up with it, playing against my sister, and it was really fun. It's I mean, it's just a very interesting little game, and it's nice because it's different from a game like chess where the whole point is that you've got a lot of hidden information. So there are a lot of different ways that you can sort of give your opponent false information and things of that nature by moving in a particular way that makes it seem like it's one piece when it's actually another, all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of very interesting and surprisingly deep strategy in this little game with a cardboard board and a bunch of plastic pieces, although that would explain many games on my shelf. But either way, Stratego is my number 3 Blast from the Past. At number 2, I've got a game that many of you may not have even heard of, but it's a game that I grew up playing with my parents. I remember they had, I don't know if it was an original copy of the game, it may have been a reprint or something, but I would play with my dad all the time. The game is called Mastermind. The way that it works is you've got one player who sets up pins in a specific way. You have different colors and you put them in a specific order, and the other player is guessing both the color and the order of the pins, and you have X number of guesses to get everything correct, and as they go, then the person who is looking at them will put colored pins on one side to indicate how much of the guess is correct. And the idea is that the other player has to deduce which aspects are right and wrong. For those of you who have played the Fallout series, it's essentially the hacking minigame from primarily Fallout 3 and 4, where you select a word and it tells you X number out of X number correct. It's the exact same thing, but instead of words, you're talking about a random combination of colors and order of wooden pegs. It's a very fun deductive game, and if you guys have seen my videos before, you know that I am a huge fan of deduction in board games, and this one was really probably the very first one that I ever played that utilized this mechanic in a very real way. But with that, the Mastermind is my number 2 Blast from the Past board game. At number one, I've got a game that may or may not come as a surprise to many of you if y'all pay attention to my shelf and see what's missing. This is a game that I actually learned from my grandfather, and I would play it with him every single time I went to visit. And the thing is, I could never, ever, ever beat him. He always beat me. It was really annoying. But because of that, I got really, really good at it, and I had a ton of fun playing all throughout my youth and even now, although less so than I would like to because I can't find a lot of people interested in it. And what is the game? It is chess. Yes, this is my big fancy chessboard. I know you guys haven't seen it before, but this is actually a chessboard that I got in Poland really, really long time ago, probably about a decade and a half ago at this point. And all of the pieces are individually hand carved. They're absolutely gorgeous. I really, really love this chess set. Chess itself, as you all know, has been around for many, many centuries, just like Go has. And it is a classic example of essentially military strategy is what it was originally used for. But that's kind of beside the point. The point for my purposes is just that it is a wonderful game that brings back a lot of very pleasant memories playing with my family. Like I said, I used to play with my grandfather every time we would go and visit, and it was always so much fun. When I was a kid, when I was in 3rd grade, I was in the chess club at my elementary school, and I actually got like I got 3rd place in our like little tournament that we had with the entirety of the chess club. And I stayed in chess club through most of elementary school and through part of middle school, and then I stopped playing at school, but I kept playing with my parents, and not so much with my sister. But I mean, chess is such a pure strategy game that I really can't even describe it. You know, that is really what it all boils down to. You have a limited number of options regarding movement because everything is programmed with specific movement types. There is no hidden information because you can see your opponent's pieces as well. It is just strict brain versus brain. That is what it boils down to. And I absolutely love it. I really do. Now, the one caveat that I will say on this is I love chess, but I have had a lot of fun playing Hive. For those of you who haven't played Hive, it's a unique tile placement game, and you have movement rules just like in chess where certain pieces are capable of moving in different ways and all this kind of thing. But the nice thing is you don't have a set board shape, so it can sort of take any amalgamous shape that you want. And for me, these two are not quite analogous, but very, very close to one another. I prefer chess a little bit simply because of the nostalgia factor and the fact that, oh, well, you know, it's a classic, it's chess, you know, how can you not? And all this kind of stuff. But Hive does bring out a very similar kind of mentality in me, and I absolutely love it. Again, chess, amazing game, a tremendous blast from the past, not only for me, but I'm sure for many of you, simply because of the story behind how I started to play it, that I still play it, that I have my nice fancy chess set, and it's so beautiful, and I love it. But yeah, it's a great game. I love playing it, and that is why it is my #1 blast from the past. So that's it for me, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed my top 5 blast from the past board games. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. Like I said, these are all games that I grew up playing and that I started loving when I was a kid. None of them are really overly complex. They're not difficult games to learn. That's why I played them when I was a child. And the thing is that I still do enjoy them. They're not on, you know, really massive like top lists or anything, but I found that a lot of people who discuss board games and talk about board games really don't talk a lot about games like Go or chess and things like this when, you know, we're talking about very classic strategy and, I mean, a lot of very deep layers of thinking ahead and, you know, again with like Stratego, the misinformation, deception, things like that, that we see now in a lot of so-called modern games that were really, really great way back when as well. So, like I said, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. I would love to hear what games you all grew up with. What games do you still enjoy now as a, however much older adult or, however much older teenager or kid? I don't know how old you all are. It doesn't matter. But what did you grow up with? What brings back the nostalgia feels for you? Like, what brings you back to like, oh, I love playing that game and it was this and it was that and the other and all that kind of stuff. And again, as a caveat, obviously none of these games are like Candyland or Life and things of that nature, but I did play those. We had those, and they were fun. I would play with my sister fairly frequently, but they don't bring about the same feelings as some of these more heavily strategic games. So I'm very curious what you guys think about it. Do you think that the more sort of campy type of kid-oriented games are really what would bring out more nostalgia for you, or do you have the more intense strategic games that you played as a kid that maybe you would still enjoy, or whatever it happens to be? As always, anything and everything into the comments for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much again, everybody, for watching my top 5 favorite Blast from the Past board games. Again, these are the games that I grew up during my childhood playing, that my parents and my grandparents taught me, and they just have a great deal of very fond memories for me personally. In addition to that, they are very classic strategic board games that really didn't need all of the massive bells and whistles and stuff that we see on a lot of modern board games. So once again, I would love to hear what you guys have to say on this subject. What are some of the board games that you grew up playing? What are some things that your parents, grandparents, relatives of any sort taught you how to play? What hits you in that nostalgia feels, all of that kind of stuff. I would love to hear all of your guys' stories on this. Now, with that, as always, I've got several of my playlists linked up at the top of the page, so you can see some more of my work, and if you want to see more of me in the future, you can click on that big giant subscribe button. So with that, thank you so much once again, and I will see you next time.